What's happening, Elevation Nation? We are back with another conversation with a new elevator. We have Steven Rofrano, the co-founder and CEO of Ancient Crunch Inc., and they're building the Frito-Lay of real food. Steven, welcome to Elevation Nation. I've been waiting. It's almost been 6 months since we first met.
I think we scheduled this in April or something. It's now September, something like that.
And now it's September. We're pumped to have you, man. How you doing? How you feeling?
Good, yeah, great to be here. Thanks for having me. Doing well. Very busy lately, but we just launched a new product line, and that's a whole nightmare. But it's going well, so can't complain.
Steven, I'm hyped to get into this conversation with you, but I'm starting off the bat with a bad note. I have a grievance already to pick with you. Oh, yeah. Parker said after his conversation that you were kind enough to send him some of the product to taste. And to say I was jealous is an understatement because he called me as soon as the shipment showed up and was like, bro, these things are next level. And I'm like, where can I get them? What's going on? He's like, dude, I'm telling you, these things are legit. You are going to be obsessed. So I'm looking forward to eventually trying some of the products and maybe the new products as well. I hope I impress you enough to be able to try some of this stuff after our episode.
It's like an administrative oversight. I don't know how we can knock this out. If we got one, we should have gotten two. So something is not firing on all cylinders.
I think Parker was just selfish, said it was just him, and wanted to keep all the goodness for himself.
Okay. You sent 4 bags of the tortilla chips, Steven, and my wife and I were like, oh my God. These are so freaking good. I think I finished them. I finished them in a week. It was bad.
Yeah, they go quick. There's never enough masa. We always
say
that.
I like that. Never.
Yeah.
I love it. So, Steven, besides me poking fun at you and Parker, we do like to start off every single episode with what we call as an elevator pitch. Obviously, Parker and I have done our research on you and are excited to chat. But can you share a little bit about yourself and your background with the rest of Elevation Nation?
Sure. So I used to be a software engineer. I got really into health though, and I decided to quit the big tech grind life to go build a seed oil-free tortilla and other chip company. And here we are.
So how do you go from working at Meta as a software engineer? Talk us through what that looks like. I'm sure you're sitting behind a computer all day to now building a food company. Yeah. I can't imagine that was easy.
Well, actually, I am still mostly sitting behind a computer all day, I will say. So the transition's not so hard. No, very funny. When I told my team there that I was leaving to go start a company that sells chips, they thought it was like semiconductors, and I'm like, no, that's
funny.
Not those kind of chips. It's the chips you eat. So I mean, the interest in this space starts a bit further back. This is definitely when I was a freshman in college, I started learning about health and food and how you could feel better if you eat better foods, which is obvious to me and now and a lot of people, but it wasn't obvious to me then. So my obsession through the rest of college and then into when I got a job was just health, food, lifestyle. How can I make my environment not poison me and make me feel better, or allow me to feel better and do more useful stuff? So when I got the job at Facebook, it was during COVID. And so to this day, I've never actually set foot in a Facebook office. I interviewed the second week of remote interviews in March of 2020, and my job started in June, and I have never set foot in an office. But in part because of this, I had a lot of spare time hanging out, just on my laptop in an apartment in New York. And one day I decided to do a little bet with a friend. I would start making TikTok videos, or we both started making TikTok videos. He was making videos he was an actor. And so he was making sketch comedy things. And I obviously would talk the ear off of anyone about food and nutrition. So I was going to make nutrition videos. I started doing that. This was in 2021, and I got to about 80,000 TikTok followers in 80 days of consistent posting. I stopped largely after this point, but it was an interesting exercise, and started my whole online health presence, which is then what ultimately directly led into MASA, and then I quit my job and have been working on Ancient Crunch. And for the listeners, Ancient Crunch is the company. MASA is the name of our tortilla chips. And so I quit about 2 years after I started working at Facebook, and have been doing this full time, and it's been almost 2 years since then.
I mean, I have so many questions, but one, congratulations on taking that jump. I think, I have a lot of interest in food, so we'll get to that. But the main thing is, it's really nice when we hear people who have been in the corporate world and are able to follow their passion and quit and go full time on something that they truly care about. Parker and I being still full-time Big Four consultants and certainly spending our days behind a computer screen and talking to clients and doing this on the side because we love it and we love helping people and speaking around the country to young adults who we feel are a little bit lost in their fulfillment. It's nice to know that there is that path to eventually get there. So I'm excited for you. I have a question that maybe goes a little bit further back than you've gone before in any of your other interviews. Sure. I want to talk about the food you were eating as a kid. Because I think how we first get our relationship with food obviously comes from what is packed in our lunch that we go to school or come home and eat. I'm curious, Steven, what kind of food did you eat growing up?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it definitely had an influence. So my mom's parents are immigrants from Sicily, or were. They are now passed, but they were immigrants from Sicily. And as such, especially my grandfather, they were avowed food snobs. So it was very strange because I grew up in a very American suburban neighborhood in New Jersey. Obviously, they're Italians, they're Irish, there's whoever. But it was not like an ethnically Italian community, if you will. And yet, I never ate like American food. I never had bologna. I never ate McDonald's. Didn't drink Coke. I never ate mustard. We never had mayonnaise. Didn't do sauerkraut. Didn't eat pickles. Wow. Never had Aunt Jemima. Hot Pockets, Lunchables. Like to this day, I've never had any. I mean, I've had mustard here and there, but like throughout my entire childhood, I've never eaten any of those things. Still never had a McDonald's hamburger or any other fast food hamburger for that matter. And so there was a very particular way of doing food in my house. My mom is very funny. There was like the set of foods that are good are just the ones that she grew up with from her parents, and the set of foods that are questionable are the ones that she didn't. So yeah, we ate a lot of Italian food, higher quality ingredients. There was not an emphasis so much on organic and natural and grass-fed and pasture-raised, whatever. That wasn't really a big thing back then. My mom certainly baked with canola oil, unfortunately. But there was definitely this idea of like food should be good. It should be made by hand at home. And because of this, I basically never ate a single meal that my mom didn't cook. I'm exaggerating. Like obviously, like I would go to a friend's house here and there. But like school lunches, my mom made them. I never had a school lunch. And then like in college, they had a dining hall, right? So I ate all my meals there. I never had a meal that I cooked for myself for the most part until I was like 19 years old. And that's like the first time I ever had to cook. And that's when I discovered health and that whole thing that I mentioned earlier.
I love that background. I mean, I think it's really interesting, and we could go in all different directions on food because it's a passion of mine. But to talk about the Italian roots of that's what you grew up with and that's what's normal, and your mom, anything that wasn't Italian was essentially foreign, right? And I think for Parker and myself, right, I grew up Jewish American, and we have some weird foods in the Jewish culture, right? Like growing up and eating gefilte fish around the holidays. I'm not sure if you're familiar. Like
very familiar, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. But to me, I was like, yeah, it's gefilte fish. You know, it's normal.
Matzo balls.
Matzo balls are good.
Matzo balls.
Fire.
Exactly. So we grow up with these things that I think are so embedded in our culture, in our day-to-day, in our comfort, and our familiarity that as we grow and are exposed to new things, it's certainly scary. And Parker and I talk a lot in Elevation Nation about this concept of the comfort zone. And we believe that many of us do our best elevating our best growth when we go outside that comfort zone. And Parker knows he's traveled the world with me. My favorite way to do that is by eating weird food. Weird for me, right? Food that's strange that comes from other cultures. And I think that's really important. I'll tell a quick story and then I'll pass it to Parker. But Parker just got married. He had his bachelor party in Colombia. It was amazing. And we went down there. I never felt more energized, healthier, cleaner, more delicious food in my life because none of it was processed. It was all super healthy food. It was fantastic. You knew where you were getting it from. The vegetables, I remember some of the guys came down and they had a little mini boat in the house that we had filled with fresh fruits and vegetables. And some of the things looked different. They looked weird. Parker, I don't know if you remember. It's because it wasn't the perfect produce that we get in our supermarket that is whatever GMO raised or they throw. Yeah, it looked like to us inedible, strange, weird, but the flavor was better than anything we get in the States. So I love traveling because I think it gives us an opportunity to get closer to food that maybe in America is a little bit, unfortunately, harder to get to the source.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. America by far has the worst food of any developed country. By far, which is insane. And we used to have some best food. America in the 50s was like, we had the best food of any developed country, and now we have like the worst food of any developed country. It's very shocking how quickly we fell.
So let's talk about that. Like, why has that changed over the last 70 years, Stephen?
Good question. So there's a few influences that took place in America. Everyone always goes about how you can go to Italy and the food's so much better. You go to France, yada yada yada. There's good reasons for this. I'll stick to a few. One of which is the lack of cultural heritage that most Americans have. So everyone knows Parmesan cheese, right? Parmigiano Reggiano, the king of cheeses, the cheese of kings, if you will. That's literally what it means. Like Reggiano means of kings, like in Italian. So that cheese has been made for the past at least 600 to 800 years in the same way, in the same place, in Italy, by more or less the same people. Prosciutto di Parma, people are maybe familiar with, although I'm sure you guys may not be as much. That is made in Parma, Italy, and there's a letter from Cato the Elder, the ancient Roman senator, talking about like to some friend, and we have this like archaeological record. He's like, "Oh yeah, those guys up in Parma, they make some really good ham."
No
way. The Roman
Really?
senators. So 2,000 years ago, people were making prosciutto in Parma, Italy, and now you can still buy this thing.
Wow.
When your culture and your basically like your entire cultural heritage of people have every one of your ancestors has been eating and or making this product for the past however many hundreds, if not thousands of years, you have a different relationship to it than you do versus if you don't have that connection, right? In America, we eat foods on a routine basis that our parents had never even heard of, right? Like avocado oil is a good example. Mexicans never, it's not even like Mexicans were eating avocado oil and it was imported to America. No one ate avocado oil up until like maybe the past 20 years. No one was doing it. How many of your ancestors ever ate tapioca? Like tapioca starch or something. My grandfather never ate coconut oil. I'm sure he never even shopped at a grocery store where coconut oil was available for purchase. And I'm not saying these foods are necessarily bad. The point is they're very new. And so we eat foods all the time that are new and different, and so we lose the connection to those foods that are much more long-standing. And because of that, we pay a lot less attention to the heritage of a given food and are thus susceptible to consuming things without such heritage. So that's a big one. Another differentiating factor is, and the reason why the American food went from being good to so bad, is this sort of urbanization of the bourgeoisie in American culture from, say, the 1920s through the 1960s. Most of America, and like this is the Mad Men thing, right? Don Draper, he grew up on a farm, yet he was this white-collar professional in New York City. Fictional, of course, but that paralleled the lives of many such people at the time. Most people, even in the mid-century, grew up, or their parents grew up on some farm somewhere. So there was this connection to the land that was then lost as they moved to a city. But it wasn't merely accidental. There's this cultural idea of like, for lack of a better term, the dirty peasant, right? Like, oh, I wear a suit. I work on Madison Avenue now. Like, oh, I'm not a dirty peasant. I don't work on a farm. And so that manifested in several ways. Fashion is one of them, right? There's always been a distinction in fashion between people who live in cities and people who live out in the countryside. But there's this like idea of this cultural cleanliness, like, oh, that dirty food, that dusty cow poop smelling farm. Like, oh, we don't have any of that. Our food is made in laboratories and made in factories by scientists in white coats. And that's literally, if you look at the vegetable oil marketing campaigns by Procter & Gamble and others in the 1950s, that was how they were marketing it. It was like this clean white room with white floors and doctors saying like, oh, this is not dirty oil. It's clean. It doesn't smell. It doesn't smell like pig.
And science backs it.
It's like clean in the sort of cultural sense that's behind a lot of like various religious and other cultural rules for like food preparation and whatnot. There's always this idea of material cleanliness, but like spiritual or emotional or cultural cleanliness. And that was taking place in America at the time, where the natural food was this unclean thing. And it's funny because it's not reversing, right? For me and people probably similar to me and probably similar to you, like natural and organic from a farm, fresh eggs, they're brown, like that's good. Where like, oh, that has chemicals in it, that's dirty. But to the 1950s person, the chemicals signify that it was like clean and like artificial was clean, and now artificial is like a dirty word. So that was another thing. And then the last thing is that the World War II has two things here. During the war, farms were subsidized by the federal government so that food production continued, even if economic incentives in the free market were not there. We needed food to serve to support the troops, so the government paid for farmers to grow food. Those never went away, still to this day, 70 years later. The farm subsidies have continued. They've obviously been morphed and whatever. But this is the reason why they put freaking corn in everything. This is the reason why there's corn syrup and corn oil and corn in your biodegradable plastic made from corn. Xylitol is made from corn. They put corn in the gasoline, right? Ethanol and gasoline is made from corn. Corn is stuck in places that it probably shouldn't be, but it's because like Midwestern farmers are paid by the federal government to grow corn and other products, conventional, GMO pesticide products. So, of course, if there's a government incentive, or if there's a financial incentive subsidized by the government to grow a certain thing and put that in food, it ends up getting put everywhere. And then you get the inventions of like corn oil and high fructose corn syrup and all these other things, because there's just so much corn, they need to do something with it. It makes its way into packaged foods, and then here we are. Lastly, and I know this is a long answer, but the last reason why that I want to talk about why food is so bad is because all the defense companies who were making gunpowder and like tear gas and missiles and whatever, a big portion of defense is actually the chemical companies turning petroleum into various things. DuPont, one of the largest chemical companies in the world, started off as a gunpowder company in the 1800s. It was by a Frenchman who moved to America. So the chemical companies have a lot of business during the war. They buy factories, they build up machinery, they have employees. The war is over. What do? Well, they got into agriculture. They started making pesticides and fertilizers. And that created what sociologists might call the Green Revolution, which is the modern wave of pesticides and fertilizers that enable much higher yields, obviously of much lower quality produce. But that led to the abundance of such cheap, low quality food in America. All of those factors are not uniquely American, but they're predominantly American, and the confluence of them results in why I think American food is so much worse than other developed countries.
I was messaging Parker on the side, Steven, where I said I could listen to you talk about this stuff for hours. It is fascinating. This is, I guess, where I nerd out because I'm into this stuff. But having read, Omnivore's Dilemma, seen Food Inc., tried to get a little bit closer to where our food comes from. We actually just had some farmers on the podcast, which one of the questions statements I said was, I'm embarrassed to admit this, you guys are the first farmers I've ever had a full conversation with.
Yeah,
right? And I think most Americans would probably be in the same boat as
3% of the American population is a farmer, and in 1910 it was like 90% was a farmer.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And that's true of basically all cultures and everyone talks about the past. If you were in the past, you were a farmer. Like the modal person at any point in human history or any point in civilizational history was a farmer.
Wow. Stephen, when we talked a couple months back, you mentioned something that really resonated with me, is that you walk through a supermarket and you have all these big company brands, right? And they're producing food at the most vast scale, right? So that they can feed people in a cheap way. And as a result of it being cheap, you lose quality. Right. And so I'm really curious. I think you said some crazy stat. Like, people used to spend more of their disposable income on food, and now it's come down.
In the 1950s, people spent 30%, whatever, 30-ish percent, 1/3 of their disposable income on food. And today they spend 11% of their disposable income on food. And people, like, I don't need to get into modern economic inflation, whatever. Like, yes, there are a lot of issues at play. However, all things considered, we spend a far smaller proportion of our money on food today than we did just 50 or 70 years ago. And like I said before, and before that, you didn't even spend money on food. You were a farmer. Like, you spent your entire full-time career on food. So the amount of human effort, the amount of individual effort that goes into the securing and production and consumption of food today is a lot lower than it has been pretty much at any point in human history. It's crazy.
I'm not sure, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, Stephen, in fact finding, but I imagine the percentage of Americans that even know how to cook has probably dropped off as well, right? Like, we're so used to DoorDash and fast casual and drive-through that skill set has probably diminished as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like, this is another an interesting cultural thing. So history is weird because you only ever see things in a certain way. You only ever see the things that are written down, and the things that are written down are the things that concern aristocratic men, basically, because those are the people that are writing things down. So there's a lot of history that people are like, we have very little data on or very little intel on because it wasn't the domain of aristocratic men for whatever reason. That's why we know so much about, like, we know exactly what happened at the Battle of Agincourt, you know, in 14, whatever it was. But we don't know, like, what people were, like, doing in their domestic lives, like, 200 years ago, you know, this kind of thing. One of those things, of course, is food. Obviously, there are recipe books from the Romans, you know, but it's like what the emperor was eating, what the private chef to the emperor would cook. And so a lot of culture is not transmitted through books, and this is the thing that historians often get wrong. Culture is transmitted through, like, individual people, and in particularly women. Like, what you make, like, for example, my Italian grandma, my mom knows how to make all the recipes. There's no recipe books. There's not even measures and amounts. Like, there's not, oh, this quarter teaspoon of olive oil and this amount of oregano. No, it's like, oh, you put a little bit of here, you do a little bit of that. Like, there's no recipe. There's no book. We have no freaking clue. And so when you have, that is a thing that women know because my mom knows this because her mom knew this because her mom knew it because her mom knew it till, like, the freaking 1300s or something. I don't know. And so when that gets interrupted, you literally lose cultural knowledge. And food is, of course, one of the largest aspects of culture. And, like, the lack of knowledge of actual recipes that actual non-aristocratic, not, you know, rich people, actual people ate, that gets lost and it doesn't really get recovered because it's not written down.
That's a fascinating point. Oh my God. I mean, like, I'm thinking about my grandma and the things that she makes, and, you know, is it really written on paper? No, you kind of just know by memory and what you've been told, and hopefully we could take notes and remember that too.
If no one in your family, like if your wife or mom or whoever doesn't learn it, then it's gone. She dies, it's gone.
Then it's gone.
Yeah.
It's gone. Wow. So let's move forward in the conversation a little bit, Stephen. You said, or I guess you can look it up on your website, Ancient Crunch is building the Frito-Lay of real food. Let's talk about that mission and how you guys are doing this.
Yeah, so Frito-Lay, for those that don't know, is the snack conglomerate that owns Fritos and Lays, obviously, but also Tostitos, Doritos, and those are the most famous ones. Let's see if we have Frito-Lay brands. What else you might know? Sun Chips. We got Cracker Jacks. You got Smart Food, like the popcorn, Santitas, tortilla chips. I mean, it's a whole bunch of Ruffles, potato chips. It's a lot of the snack aisle. I don't know percent. Oh, Cheetos, also Cheetos. How could I forget? It's a lot of the snack aisle. I don't know exactly what percentage of all, like, crunchy snacks. They're called salty snacks in the industry. It's the salty snack category, just like you have the produce section, salty snacks. The Frito-Lay is probably responsible for the plurality of salty snacks sown in America, if not the majority. So what we're doing, so the problem with Frito-Lay, of course, is that all of the snacks are poison, basically, in one form or another, whether it's the seed oils or the pesticides or the artificial flavors or the preservatives or the other just, like, weird stuff that's in the ingredient label for, like, God knows what reason. It's not good for you, and it's making America very sick, and Americans very sick, overweight, and everything else that's horrible. The problem with it, of course, is it tastes amazing. That's the issue. It's delicious. It's convenient. It's already cooked. You know, you just put it in your mouth or you eat it with a dip or whatever. It's convenient. It tastes amazing, and it's a very strong part of American culture. People have been eating Lays for 70 years, right? America's barely, like, 3 times as old as Lays are. And so it's a very big part of our cultural heritage, and that desire for that product experience is not going to go away anytime soon. The reason why people who ate this stuff in the 50s, though, or prior times, were not so sick is because the recipes were not made with as horrible ingredients. Like I said, all this industrial, like, agriculture stuff was invented right around this time. Before then, food was organic by default. There was no not organic. It was obviously organic, you know. They didn't need a label for it. Cows ate grass. We didn't grow soybeans much prior to the 60s. So cows ate grass because soybeans and massive corn farming operations didn't exist. So food was natural and was fine. And they used those ingredients to make the recipes that became popular in America. Same thing with McDonald's French fries. McDonald's French fries in the 50s, grass-fed beef tallow, because default beef tallow, and potatoes, which are organic because there are no chemicals to make them not organic. It's great. And those things were delicious. They nourished people. Like fast food actually provided a useful thing to millions of Americans at that time. And it grew to be so popular for a reason. It was like actually good stuff. What happened is they remained popular and they remained widespread, but they started one by one replacing their ingredients with, oh, we're going to switch out the tallow for seed oil here. We're going to switch out the potatoes for an organic thing here. Oh, Pringles, we're not even going to use potatoes. We're going to use freaking potato, like sawdust, basically, that they compress together to make a Pringle. Oh, we're going to not use cheese. We're going to use this like fake cheese powder. We're going to use this Red 40, whatever. The brand stayed the same. The consumption stayed the same. They stayed as popular. They stayed as popular, but the essence of the product was completely like ripped out of it. And that's what made people sick. So when I say we're making the Frito-Lay of real food, we're literally doing what they did 70, 80 years ago. We're making those things that are so delicious and so nourishing and so useful to people that they became so popular. All of those recipes, potato chips, tortilla chips, Cheez-Its, or whatever have you, pick a thing. We're going to do that, but we're going to make it with actual ingredients and actual food the way it's supposed to be. And we're going to do that across the snack aisle of America. One by one, we're going to, shoot them down and replace them wholesale with things that are actually good for people.
So many questions here. I know Sam's probably got many, but I can't imagine, like, how does that even start? You worked at Meta as a software engineer, and now you're creating an actual potato chip or physical tortilla chip that people are going to eat. What does that look like for you? Like, what was that first year like?
So the idea started in January 1st, the beginning of the year in 2022. Yes, 2022. I was basically criticizing my hungover friend on New Year's Day for eating, seed oil-filled Tostitos or something from Uber Eats. I don't know what it was. We get to talking, health foods, blah, blah, blah. I have no time to be healthy. You spend all your life, you work 4 hours a week because you're a software engineer, so you can cook. I can't cook. I'm in private equity. I work, 100 hours a week, blah, blah, blah. And I start, and besides, even if I had time to eat healthy food, it doesn't taste good. I don't like it. I'm like, no, you're wrong. Health foods actually taste better than these shitty Tostitos. I wouldn't eat Tostitos, not even because I know they're bad for you, because they're just like a crappy chip. Like, I'm too much of a snob. I would not eat a Tostito. It's like flaky, it falls apart. So I start explaining how when you make foods with real ingredients, the way they're supposed to be made, and if you want to talk about that, we totally can, they end up being more delicious than the modern junk food version and better for you, which makes sense. Obviously, they're more expensive, but it's just higher quality. It's like, why do you go to an expensive restaurant when you could go to Chili's or something else? It's higher quality. It's just better. So I start talking about how that could be done for tortilla chips, and he more or less asks where I can go get those, and I say, oh, you can't. No one's doing it. And so he challenges me to go make it. I do. This is Easter of that year, so April 2022. I make the prototype. I try it. I think it's great. But the real thing that kind of set me over the edge was I fed it to some of my extended family are not as food conscious or not as, let's say, exploratory as I am. I'll eat beef liver and lamb testicles and whatever. But whatever, like my family that would eat normal food, I had them try the prototype, and they thought they were incredible. They're like, wow, these people who are like normal Americans that don't eat weird stuff are eating a beef fat fried tortilla chip, and they think it tastes better. Like, that's special. Like, that's a winning combo right there. That's what it's going to take, right? To convince people to eat healthy, you have to make sure that it's like more enjoyable than the common alternative. So that's when I decided we have to actually make this happen. And then we rented like a commercial kitchen, bought a fryer, got some tortillas, got some tallow, designed the bags, printed them up, started making them. I was the first MASA chip fryer, personally, by hand, salting them, with a salt shaker.
Incredible.
And we started selling them in July of 2022. and they did very well, and I quit Facebook about 3 months later.
Are you allowed to tell us how much you've done since then? Units?
I can estimate how many bags we've sold, but let's just say we currently make and sell about 100,000 bags a month of chips.
Wow.
Yeah.
And still hand salted by Steven.
Oh, yes. I'm doing all of it. I have a time turner. I'm doing all of it. No. Yeah, we've sold about I can't even. I think we've sold about like 700,000 bags lifetime or something like that.
Wow.
And so, yeah, I mean, a lot of it's like you're on the part of the curve where you just do so much volume as you grow exponentially in the recent.
Well, people clearly love the chips.
They like the chips. The chips. We have several thousand people who have placed like more than 4 orders of chips. We have people who are like on their 15th MASA box at this point.
Wow. Yeah. Oh, we lost Sam, but he'll be back. We'll keep recording because it keeps going and everything. That's incredible. So what do you think it is about that the chip itself, the MASA chip, that people like, that gravitates them back? Is it the experience? Is it the crunch? Is it the taste, the smell, the bag? Is it in supermarkets that they frequent?
Well, I think it is the crunch, it is the taste, it is the smell, it is a culinarily enjoyable thing. But there are plenty of culinarily enjoyable things that don't work in the same way. And the secret sauce, if you will, is that the American mind thinks of food in 2 categories. There's delicious foods that everyone loves that are bad for me, like McDonald's and pizza and whatever. On the other hand, there's a distinct category of foods that are healthy and I should eat, but they taste bad. Kale and chia seeds and soy milk or whatever. You get the idea. But like because of the fucked up history of American food, we don't have a middle ground. We think of foods as either one of those 2 things. You know, it's either healthy and I hate it, or it's bad for me and I love it. So having something in the middle is not considered to be possible by most people, right? You talk to people, go out with them. They're like, "Oh, this tastes so good. Oh my gosh, this must be bad for me." Or like, I can't have another piece. It's too good, right? Like it's almost as if the goodness makes it unhealthy in their mind. That's obviously not true as far as food is concerned, as far as many things are concerned. So, but the secret sauce is that I know that foods can be both healthy and delicious. No one else knows that. And so here I am showing up with a food that is actually better for you and actually more enjoyable. You know, there's plenty of health food brands that are like, "Oh, we're the healthy alternative that tastes just like the real thing," and they never taste like the real thing. How many of these have you tried, whether it's like keto cookies or like carb-free chips or whatever? It's like, it's always horrible. It's never like the real thing. They always lie. It's very frustrating. But here I am saying, "Hey, I have something. It's healthier, and it tastes better," and I'm not lying. That's why it wins. That's why it's successful.
I mean, I'm going to say it again because I've tried them. They are effing incredible. They're amazing. I couldn't get enough of them. And you guys also don't shy away from saying it's basically fried in, this, right?
Beef tallow. Yeah. I mean, well, that's beef tallow is having a moment right now, if you will. Primally Pure is like, God, rub beef fat on your face, plastered all over billboards in Austin and Los Angeles right now. They're a tallow skincare company. But sure, yeah, no, I mean, that's how it used to be, right? That's the whole point. That's how it was done. Tallow is the original frying fat. Belgian French fries, which are like the inspiration for all modern French fries invented in the 1800s, are fried, and in many traditional places still fried in beef tallow. McDonald's was invented and popularized and spread across America like wildfire because their French fries were fried in beef tallow up until the 19th.
I think it's funny, Steven, right? You just said those health foods never taste like the real thing. When to me, it's really your product tastes like the real thing, but the real thing has gone through so many, I'm doing air quotes, innovative, changes to bring it into modern day America that it's all chemicals now, that the real thing is really what you're bringing people back to. And I think you're helping shift the mindset of the consumer. I think it's naturally happening a little bit as time has gone on and we're getting more information. But I think you guys are helping us do that as well, where we're not going back to necessarily the flavor of those artificial chips. Yes, they taste good, but hold on. Your ancestors ate this and it tasted even better. Like, go back to the actual real thing. And I think that's a cool little mindset shift that you are helping pave the path for.
And I mean, that's a very good point. Like, they think Lay's or Doritos is the real thing. It's not the real thing. We are the real thing. And the other health foods are like pretending to be the fake real thing. Like, no, the real potato chip is what we sell. Vandy, which we just launched 2 months ago, that is a real potato chip. Lay's is not a real potato chip. And the flavor thing is interesting because, Doritos, obviously the most famous example of like a highly seasoned product. I can do Doritos. I can do anything because this is the fun thing about flavors. Just like colors almost. There are no fake flavors, if you think about it. There are things that mimic the taste of natural things, but there is no like flavor on even the most junky chewing gum or, product or whatever. There's no flavor additives that they put in there that are like a novel flavor to the palate. Like vanillin is fake synthetic vanilla, but it tastes like vanilla, right? There's oregano.
Pink lemonade.
But it's still lemon.
Does that count?
Right? It's lemon.
Yeah.
It's just pink,
Yeah.
So flavors aren't fake. It's just the fake flavor ingredients are simply cheap artificial versions of creating the real flavors because real spices are expensive. As anyone who's studied the history of colonialism knows, spices are obviously very expensive. So like, pick a thing. Like Doritos, I can do that. Cool Ranch, I can do that. Freeze dry a bunch of like heavy. There you go. Cool Ranch and put some like onions or whatever. Cool Ranch Doritos. I can freeze dry Parmesan or Reggiano cheese, sprinkle it on a chip, and now I have cheese for my chips. I could do limes. That's what we have to do for the lime flavor. Every lime tortilla chip is made of like some fake lime thing. I could not find organic lime powder. That's only ingredient was organic limes. So I started buying limes. And we were sitting there with a deli slicer, slicing them into little discs, dehydrating them, grinding them up into a powder, and then sprinkling them on the chips because there is no lime powder available. But it's like, dude, you sell a lime chip. There's no limes in the freaking thing. But again, we can just go get limes. So I can do all the flavors that you think are like, the synthetic thing. Like, I can do all of that. We have done some of it. We're going to do more of it. But that's kind of the cool thing about flavors. It's literally all this stuff is just like a fake approximation of what it's supposed to be. And why can't we just make what it's supposed to be? That's what we're doing.
Can I say one quick thing, Parker, before you go? And again, this is another rabbit hole. I'm nerding out with you, Steven. I love this stuff. On like where marketing has gone in consumerism in American grocery stores. How many of your competitors that are extremely artificial get to say real or throw a fake natural on there or organic? And it's so sad, but for you guys to enter this space, we almost need to come up with a new word that is real. What is actually like legit, because you can't say natural, like everyone says natural, organic doesn't even mean what it means anymore, right? We need a new category.
Yeah, like there's a very Orwellian thing going on. George Orwell talks about like the devolution of language and like removing meaning from words. And if you don't have words with clear meaning, you like can't think properly. Words don't have any meaning anymore because everyone's lying when they use words. Just like when people say it tastes like the real thing. They're lying. They are wrong. It does not taste like the real thing. Like someone needs to slap them across the face. You're not saying the truth. The problem with this, though, is that the audience of this language then, it's Boy Who Cried Wolf, starts to understand that those words have no meaning. So now I come along and I say it tastes like the real thing. They don't believe me. It has no meaning. So it's a very challenging thing from a marketing standpoint to try and find novel ways to say things that actually have impact to people. I wouldn't say we've cracked the code fully yet. At some point, I'm sure we will, and that'll probably be commensurate with MASA's, rapid national expansion across like every demographic. It will happen, but that's definitely a marketing game. But you're absolutely right. Like terminology and symbols don't mean what they used to. I mean, this is why we don't even put like any labels or stickers on the front. You go to the health food section, there's a non-GMO project, it's Whole30 certified, it's organic, it's this, it's that. We don't have any of those because I just choose the right ingredients where relevant, and like the customers that at least I have, they know enough to know that it doesn't matter.
Like, I don't need to put a sticker on this, bro. I literally freeze dried my limes and ground them for you.
Yeah,
like,
I don't need to.
You don't need a certification.
Right. I don't need. It's like, it's very interesting. It's like people often talk about, like in academia or something. Oh, I have a master's in psychology, or I did a PhD in this. And I'm not insulting people who have advanced degrees. That's not the point. The point is, at some point, like Freud invented psychology. No one gave him a master's in psychology or a PhD in psychology because there was no psychology to get a PhD in. He just freaking invented it, you know? And no one's going to impugn Freud on his like psychology knowledge. And the same is true with all fields. Like Newton did not have a degree in physics because he invented physics. It's like, it's the same kind of thing. Why do you need a little stamp of approval if you like actually do the thing? The stamps are for the people who don't necessarily actually do the thing. Again, psychologists and PhD, it's all very useful and they contribute novel work, but it's a very interesting thing to think that the stamp is necessary. It's not necessary.
That goes perfectly into my next question before we get into our rapid fire and then the final question we'll ask you,
Cool.
Stephen. But at Elevation Nation, Sam and I have had conversations about a concept we call mental fortitude for 4.5 years now. Mental fortitude, we think, is the missing piece that helps young people get over the hump when times are hard, when times are easy, to continue to push themselves outside the comfort zone. It's leaning on your mental fortitude that helps you get there. We think mental fortitude comes down into knowing who you are, knowing what you want, and knowing what inspires you. Clearly, we know what inspires you. Clearly, we know what you're after, and clearly, you know who you are very, very well. And I'm wondering, I'm thinking in my head, Stephen, you're such an innovator in this space, and people love your product. Do you feel the pressure about creating this thing and keeping it going so that more people who have that desire and interest can eat the food that they genuinely want to eat?
Right. Interesting question. So one thing is I didn't create anything. I'll say that. I literally just did. I just like, as if I went in a time machine, took down some notes about whatever people were doing, making food like 80 years ago, and like came back to the present and then just did that. There's no invention. There's actually an ad campaign we're working on right now. I don't know how to phrase it yet. So maybe by the time this comes out, some people might see it, but it's like, there's no patents here, or like no invention in this bag or something like this. We didn't invent shit, you know? It's just like the way God intended chips to be. So, I mean, semantic point, but to answer the essence of the question, I think it's very important that this gets done, and I'm very happy that I have the opportunity and ability to go do this. And so I don't really think about it, I suppose, in terms of like, oh, I feel pressure, I will say. I kind of just do it. I mean, I guess another way of thinking about this is I don't do it for other people, although it does help other people. It's not like I need to do it to please or to, I just want this to be, I want the world to be this way. Maybe it's very selfish, I'll say this. I want to be able to go out to a store anywhere in the country or the world and like buy food like a normal freaking person and like exist. This is a good point. I don't know how much time you want to get into this, but
Keep it going. We got all the time in the world.
When you start to be interested in health, as I have been for 10 years, you quickly start to become a very weird person. No, I can't go out to eat dinner. I'm going to cook at home. Or if I do go out to eat dinner, I spend, 20 minutes interrogating the waiter and saying, put this in there and don't put that in there. And it's like, it's a whole annoying experience. Go to a friend's house. Hey, have some of this. Oh, no, I can't. It's got whatever in it. You become very, like, sort of antisocial. And, like, you can't live like a normal person. Normal person goes out to the restaurant, gets whatever. They go to the grocery store. They buy whatever. Me, if I have to go buy food, I'm driving to a farm like 30 minutes away, right? It's a very weird and very highly inconvenient life, both socially and from like an efficiency standpoint. Once you're a health person, oh no, I forgot my red light glasses. I'm out at night, and now my night's ruined. Normal people don't care about this. This is why I've always loved traveling to Europe. And whenever I have to go on vacation, I often try to go there. Because I can just go to a cafe and eat a thing. I can get a coffee in Italy, and like I'm not interrogating, is this organic espresso? Like, did you use filtered water? Is there fluoride in the water? Like, I'm not doing this. I can go to a restaurant and just like eat food, and I'm not interrogating the waiter in Italian about seed oils because I know it's not a relevant threat where I am. And so I like doing this because I can live like a normal person. I don't have to be weird again. And so the world that we're ultimately building will enable people to not have to be weird in order to be healthy. That's the thing. I want to be able to go out to a restaurant, eat food, and go to a grocery store and buy food and just like live like a normal freaking person without having to poison myself. That's the goal. And when we ultimately fix this, like that's what it will be. And everyone else will benefit from this too. But I guess you could say it's ultimately somewhat selfish. So like I don't have to be, doing all this craziness in order to not poison myself.
Before Sam jumps in, I just want to say I respect your selfishness, if you want to call it that, so freaking much.
Well, I appreciate it. I mean, I hope other people benefit from it too, so I can sleep easy at night. I will say that. It's not like I'm, doing payday loans or some other bullshit. But yeah, no, I think it's great when those incentives are aligned. I think that's more common than we think. It just doesn't end up happening so often in society. But yeah, there's very many ways to align incentives between people. That where people's selfishness can actually do something that benefits others.
I totally agree. I, for one, am excited about how you are making this type of living more accessible. I think it comes down to accessibility, right?
Exactly.
That, as you were telling that story, right, there was a time where there weren't, sidewalk ramps, right? Those weren't accessible, and people just wanted them to be accessible, so they didn't have to feel weird and could be normal, right?
Sure.
And there was movement around that. And I think you are helping with that movement around accessibility when it comes to our food and being able to go in our American modern day society and feel as though your needs when it comes to your health can be taken care of. And so I'm excited, for one, to see how that evolves. I hope our society, and I think it is moving in the right direction. I want to move us, Stephen, into our rapid fire segment, because if I don't, I will literally talk to you until midnight. Yeah. So we'll have to do this again in person because you're awesome. But a rapid fire, first thing that comes to mind, I'm a food guy. Parker's a food guy. What is your favorite food?
Charcuterie, like bread, olive oil, olives, cheese, prosciutto,
The full option.
Grapes. Yeah. I Roman Emperor lunch, basically. I'll eat that. Eggs, honey. That's probably, it's a hard question, but that's my answer.
All right. I got one. Maybe this is not rapid, but I guess
If
it
it's
could
me
be.
answering, it's not rapid.
Okay, fair enough. What are you excited about in the food industry in 2025?
2025, I'm excited about Ancient Crunch building a factory that will allow us to sell like 20 to 100 times more than we currently do. But fair enough. That's a cheating answer. I think there's a lot more popularity around and a lot more farmers doing regenerative agriculture. And I'm excited to see that trend continue. There's very few bee farms that have a regenerative certified thing. And that number is growing pretty tremendously. So that's very exciting.
Our last rapid fire, Parker has a ton of books behind him. Mine are on my Kindle because I guess I'm modern and sold my soul to Amazon. American consumerism. But we love asking our elevators if they have a book recommendation for Elevation Nation. Is there one that you would recommend to Parker, myself, and all our listeners?
Sure. In keeping with the theme of health and nutrition, I think Nutrition and Physical Degeneration by Weston Price, book from the early 30s, late 20s. He was a dentist and a nutritional anthropologist. He basically invented the field of nutritional anthropology, and he wrote what, in my opinion, is the most important book on at least nutrition, if not all of human health ever written, simply because of the photos, if not for any other reason. He goes around to various as yet untouched tribes or tribes that are in the process of being so-called civilized at the time, documents their health and how it changes between when they were more quote-unquote primitive and after they adopted modern foods. And the degradation or degeneration, which is the title of the book, is absolutely staggering. And it's very inspiring and also terrifying because it suggests that all of our problems are actually due to us and not I have this genetic thing that I can't change. It's very empowering, if you will. I can fix things. At the same time, it's also terrifying, showing just how horrible the influence of modernity is on our general health and how crazy and how we have accepted such a poor level of health today as normal. Yeah, that's the best book.
That sounds like a great read. I'm going to purchase that. I'm running out of space on my bookshelf, guys, so I might need a new bookshelf. I've literally purchased how many books now, Sam? How many we've welcomed 180 people to the nation, so it's a lot of books.
Never have too many books.
But you know what?
Never have too many books.
Yeah, exactly. Knowledge is power, and you can never buy too many books because one day, hopefully, you'll read them. All right, last question, Steven. We ask every single elevator who joins Elevation Nation what their mental motto is. This is a phrase, a quote, a slogan that you live your life by. So we're curious, Steven, what's your mental motto?
Yeah, I don't know if this is a great quote, but I guess, or if it's that original, but it's, if you're going to do it, you have to do it right. That's the idea. Another way this is expressed, you guys are, what, late 20s, early 30s? Doing anything is almost as difficult as doing anything else. Starting a company, good example. You're going to have to incorporate and get a domain name and set up a website and get a design for your package and create a recipe. That's going to take, like, a lot of work, right? And if your product is shitty, like if you didn't go all the way, you're going to have done all that work for not a very great outcome. Like the business outcome is binary, right? You either fail or you succeed. There's no like, oh, it was okay. No, you went bankrupt or you're killing it. And so if the difference between killing it and failure is like 10% extra work because it took a little bit longer to think about the design to make it just that little bit better, then it's worth it. And not doing it is insane. Because you're going to spend all your time, you're going to spend all this money, you're going to throw in your life savings, and then you're going to go bankrupt, and then it's going to be a sad sob story, and then you're going to be traumatized, and you're never going to want to take risks again. And your family and everyone around you is going to be scared of money forever. Like, you hear this all the time, like, oh, my dad had a thing, and it failed, and he was like, I traumatized me, and I grew up poor, and I was like, yeah, it creates horrible things, horrible effects for you and your community if you fail. So obviously success is not guaranteed, but give yourself the chance, and you do that by making your thing as good as possible, which does not actually take that much more incremental work, right? You're going to get married. Okay. You're going to have plan a wedding. You're going to have to like buy a house. You're going to have to date someone for 2 years. You're going to have to do all this stuff. You're going to live with them for 40 years. You're going to have kids together. It's the same work, whether or not you picked a good spouse or a bad spouse. So just pick a good freaking spouse and do it right. And it won't be any more work and you'll have a better outcome. There's a billion examples of this that I can think of. Obviously, the most pressing one is starting a business. But to maybe take it, to maybe give a little practical color, and then I'll leave you guys. If I try to make this product, MASA Chips, and I said, oh, I'm just going to buy beef tallow, not grass-fed beef tallow. I'm just going to buy conventional, corn-fed, soy-fed, whatever beef tallow. That's a huge freaking problem. Because it's still going to be just as expensive to make, or maybe slightly cheaper, but mostly way more expensive than the status quo product. And the type of customer who wants to buy my thing cares about this. And so if they're saying, like, the only people on earth who are going to pay $13 for a bag of chips, a 5-ounce bag of chips, want it to be grass-fed. They know about that and they care about it, and I say, no, it's not grass-fed. They're not going to give me any money. And then the set of people who don't care about grass-fed, it's too expensive for them. They're not going to give me any money either. So I'm not going to have any market. I'm going to sell it to no one. And this is very, very common in the health space where people have this like one tiny little thing where they just didn't do it right. Like I was talking about all the healthy chips out there that are like marketed, the marketing is natural or whatever. And they have like fake lime in their lime flavor. And I'm like, guys, come on. Like you're going to go through all this effort and you're just not going to do the 2% extra work to get real limes in your freaking chips. That, like fabrics too, I'm a big into natural fabrics, obviously, like cotton, wool, linen, all that stuff. I hate polyester, nylon, and everything else. And you'll go and there'll be this company that's like, oh, we make things like we have natural fashion, eco-friendly this, and there's like 2% spandex in it. I'm like, guys, come on. Like you're going to charge me $300 for this thing and or like a pair of jeans, right? Rag and Bone. I'm not picking on them for any particular reason, but I want to get new jeans and I've liked them in the past. They're 100% cotton, and I show up and it's like this $200 pair of jeans, 1% elastic. I'm like, guys, you want me to pay $200 for a pair of jeans with plastic in them that suck? Like, I'm not going to do that,
And it's just 1%.
That was it.
Just 1%.
But that's it. I mean, I strive for perfection.
It's almost like the 1% means that it really needs the plastic.
Yeah, it means that they don't. It also means they don't care, right?
They don't care.
And so why? I mean, Rag and Bone, I'm sure, is doing fine, and they can ignore this if they want. However, the point is, if you're going to do it, you have to do it right. If you don't, you'll probably fail, and then it'll suck. So don't do that.
I love it. Well, Steven, it's been 55 minutes. We really have enjoyed all of this conversation. I know Sam and I are going to be sitting. I'm going to be on the phone with Sam tonight and like rethinking about all the foods I'm putting in my fridge and in my closet and what we're eating. But I think it's an important conversation, especially for young people. who now have more disposable income and have the choice on how they spend it, especially in food. So we appreciate you so much. And on behalf of both Sam, myself, Elevation Nation, welcome to the nation. And thank you for the time.
Thank you. Happy to be here.